Here we go. Welcome back to the Bills Bunker, everybody. Welcome to the very first edition of Table Smash Tuesday, a show by Bills Mafia for Bills Mafia. This show is going to be happening every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope to see you all back here on this show. And I want to see you all in the comments section. Ask some great questions. Leave your thoughts about everything we're going to be discussing here on the channel. Obviously, this show, as you can see in the title, Buffalo Bills free agency recap. There's been a lot happening around the National Football League and a lot happening with this Buffalo Bills team. So we're going to dive right into this. But before we do, I made an intro for this. So here you go. Stay tuned.
Go Bills.
Look at this. Look at this crowd. Look at that.
Yes, it makes us want to shout. Shout!
1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. AFC East champion. Another division. Let's go.
This guy's shirtless. He's loving it.
Let's go.
That's a nice show for you. Look at it. Beautiful. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen all night. Those fireworks right there.
Let's go. Those train horns get me riled up. Let's go. It gets me fired up. And I'm excited to see y'all in the comment section here. Let's get to it. Let's go. Spears, Bills Sports Talk. Let's go. Joseph Clark, go Bills. Always go Bills. We've got a jam-packed show today. Lots to talk about. Lots of signings around the National Football League and a lot happening with the Buffalo Bills. This team, at the beginning of free agency, there was a lot happening. A lot of departures from this team. And it's going to be a big turnaround with this team. Obviously, an infusion of youth coming. Let's get right into this show. And we're going to start off by discussing the departures of the Buffalo Bills. So this is a long list. Check this out. Long list of players, obviously, notably, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Dane Jackson going to Carolina, Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse over to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Leonard Floyd to the San Francisco 49ers. And there's some other names there as well. Ryan Bates, he was traded to the Chicago Bears. So there's a lot of departing players on this Buffalo Bills team. It's going to be interesting to see what this new look Bills team looks like in 2024. We're going to dive into basically all the signings that the Bills made. We're going to discuss some re-signed players. Despite all those moves that the Bills had, you got to remember this team was negative $40 million going into free agency. So obviously those names, they had to go. It hurt to see guys like Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde. He's still a free agent. There's still potential for him to come back, I guess, but I'm not counting on that because this guy, he's had neck stingers, neck injuries year after year. He's banged up, and right now it's unlikely that he returns, but obviously I would love to see him return. When you look at some comments here, go Bills Bunker. Thank you. Go Bills. Always go Bills. Love it. Love the energy in here. Let's start off with some more players that the Bills re-signed. So you saw a lot of players depart this team, which it was unfortunate to see. But Tre'Davious White, he suffered injury after injury, 2 season-ending injuries in the last few years. It's tough to see him go, but that's something that had to be done. Jordan Poyer, he's aging veteran, goes to the Miami Dolphins of all teams. Come on, man. Going to Miami, whatever. Y'all can have Jordan Poyer because the Bills, Josh Allen's record against the Dolphins, I don't think that's going to change very much. I'm expecting the Bills to still beat the Dolphins twice a year. I'm interested to see what you think about that in the comments below. But let's dive into some of the players that the Bills re-signed here, because keeping some of your own talent, it's important. The Bills re-signed A.J. Epinesa, Daquan Jones, Ty Johnson, and Cam Lewis. I'm expecting these players to each make an impact on the team. How so? A.J. Epinesa. With the departure of Leonard Floyd going to the San Francisco 49ers, Really, we're going to need AJ Epinesa to step up and play a bigger role on this team. There's no doubt about it. Epinesa, he had a bit of a breakout year last year. I remember that pick six against the Washington Commanders, one of the most memorable plays of the season. He had an interception against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. He was pretty solid, and he's someone who was drafted by the Bills in the second round of the 2020 NFL draft. So having that homegrown talent continue developing with your team, having the familiarity with the Buffalo Bills and that defensive scheme that Sean McDermott runs, that's such a valuable asset. Ty Johnson, he came along on the Bills later in the season, and he was a tough run. He runs hard. That's what I like about Ty Johnson. He plays that punch mouth style of football. He brings that energy day in and day out. He's someone who you could expect to see him play a more increased role in this upcoming season, especially if the Bills don't draft a running back or sign a running back here. James Cook, he's great, but you need someone who can play that punch mouth style of football. That's not James Cook's game. That is something that Ty Johnson brings to the Bills. Cam Lewis, he was another player that was re-signed by the Bills. He hasn't made very much of an impact on the Bills at all over the last few years, but we've seen him play in the playoffs. We've seen him in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had to fill some voids there because the Bills, their secondary was depleted with injuries. So many injuries on that defensive side of the football that you need players to step up and make an impact. And especially with a player like Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde, all these guys potentially leaving here, you're going to need more players to step up in that secondary. Another guy that was a huge re-signing, this is probably the biggest re-signing that the Bills made, was DaQuan Jones. DaQuan Jones, he's a veteran, 32 years old, 2 years. I believe it was $16 million, the contract. So he's a run stuffer. He reminds me of a Vince Wilfork type of player. Obviously, he's not as great as Vince Wilfork was, but he plays that same role as a nose tackle in the middle. And what he does, he eats up those blocks, allowing the linebackers to come in and make some plays. That's a pretty big re-signing there. I'm going to get to some comments before I go to the next player here. Will Smith. Will Smith is in the comment section. Whoa. We got celebrities in this chat. This is crazy. Will Smith. That's crazy. What about the loss of Trey White? Elite defender, riddled by injuries, but he was elite back in the day. Absolutely. Tre'Davious White, he was elite. He was elite for the Bills. 2019, 2020. We saw him come back after his injury against the New Orleans Saints when he tore his ACL. And he'd never really fully recovered. But in the 2023 season, he was starting to step up. And I remember I was at that game against the Miami Dolphins and seeing him go down. He threw his helmet, started crying. It was an emotional scene. It was a really emotional scene, but that's something that comes with the game. And seeing him depart, it sucks. But realistically, the Bills couldn't afford to pay him as much as they were expected to pay him when he's had those injuries. You can't count on someone to come back and bounce back from 2 season-ending injuries in a row. You have Rasul Douglas now, and Rasul Douglas, ever since he was acquired by the Bills in the trade with the Green Bay Packers last trade deadline, he's been a massive player for the team, and I'm expecting him to be a massive piece of this team moving forward. He's going to have to step up and be a true leader of that defense next year once again. And we have a comment. How is Curtis Samuel going to fit in? I'll tell you how he's going to fit in. Let's discuss how Curtis Samuel fits into this Bills offense. The biggest free agency splash made by Beane this offseason easily was Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, let's look at his 2023 statistics. With the Washington Commanders in 2023, 62 receptions, 613 yards, 4 touchdowns. And if you don't know about Curtis Samuel, he can also run the football. 7 rushes for 39 yards and a touchdown. Those numbers aren't exactly something that they're not eye-popping numbers. Like, those numbers aren't the greatest. But the thing about Curtis Samuel, if you don't know, Curtis Samuel, he has some familiarity with the Buffalo Bills. He has some deep ties to the Bills offense. Joe Brady, offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills right now. He was also the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers during the 2020 season. And the 2020 season just so happened to be Curtis Samuel's best season of his career. Look at those numbers right there. 77 receptions, 851 yards, 3 touchdowns, 41 rushes for 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Curtis Samuel, this is going to be an impact signing for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people don't love the price tag, but this wide receiver market, you look at the numbers that Gabe Davis got with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'd rather pay Curtis Samuel the amount of money that the Bills are paying him than Gabe Davis, who he has some problems with dropping the football. Realistically, he drops the football a lot. We all know that. It's a fact. We've seen it countless times. Curtis Samuel doesn't have those same drop numbers. He has a higher catch rate. And having that familiarity with Joe Brady, such a valuable asset. You can plug him into the offense. You can plug him into the slot. You can plug him out wide. He can make an impact in so many different areas. Also, he can rush the football, which is such a great thing for a wide receiver. He can be a bit like Deebo Samuel in this Bills offense. And another thing about Curtis Samuel, he's never had a quarterback with the skill of Josh Allen. Josh Allen, one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League, without a doubt. And you have Curtis Samuel joining him. Samuel, his last quarterback with the Washington Commanders, it was Sam Howell. And I think that has a lot to do with these numbers that you see on the screen right here. Samuel, I mean, in Washington, you're not really expecting anyone to pop off. So these numbers, I'm expecting Curtis Samuel's numbers to look more like his numbers in 2020 when he was with Joe Brady and his offensive coordinator that's now with the Buffalo Bills. Another thing that I don't hear anybody mentioning about Curtis Samuel is the fact that he played with a guy by the name of Cam Newton. Cam Newton. And that's a very mobile quarterback, a big, big mobile quarterback. And we hear a lot about how Josh Allen, Cam Newton, we hear those comparisons quite a lot. Well, having someone who's played with a mobile quarterback, a big mobile quarterback that runs the football a lot and aggressively, that's a valuable asset because not only is he accustomed to run blocking, but he's accustomed to changing his routes based off what the quarterback is doing. If the quarterback's scrambling, there's often adjustments from the wide receivers, and that's something that Curtis Samuel, he has experience doing. So I think this is a great addition to the Bills offense. Curtis Samuel, I'm excited to see him play. And another thing that Curtis Samuel brings to this team, it's some energy. If you've seen in the Bills welcome post on Instagram, Curtis Samuel said, "Bills Mafia, I'm excited. I'm excited to bring the energy. It's going to be a lot of dancing." And check this out. Curtis Samuel, look at those moves. Curtis Samuel brings that energy to the Bills. That looks like a guy I want on my team. He looks like a guy people rally behind. He looks like he gets excited every time he's out on the field. He looks like he has fun out there. That's someone you want in your locker room. 100%. Great signing by Beane. Spears Bills Sports Talk asks, where do you see Hyde going? Right now, Micah Hyde, honestly, he could go and sign elsewhere, but I feel like he's had so many injuries over the last few seasons with that neck, the stinger. I think the most likely outcome is for him to retire. But if he does decide to play, I wouldn't be surprised to see him re-sign with the Buffalo Bills on a cheap veteran deal for the Buffalo Bills. And I would love to have Micah Hyde back because he brings that experience, that familiarity with the team. And when you look at the safety room right now, it's not that great. Right now you have Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin in that safety room. And there's some speculation about this team signing some other safeties, but we'll get into that stuff later. Micah Hyde, he's one of my favorite players of all time. I remember he stopped and signed a mini helmet for me on his way into the stadium one day. He's someone who embodies what it means to be a Buffalo Bill, someone who's always been a leader of this team. He moved from cornerback to safety when the Bills got him from Green Bay. And over the last 7 years, he was a cornerstone piece of the team. It's going to be hard to replace all of his contributions, but the Bills, they're going to have to find a way to do that because I think it's pretty unlikely that Micah Hyde returns for another season in the National Football League. Another signing that the Bills made at the wide receiver position was Mack Hollins. And a lot of you probably don't know very much about Mack Hollins. He's not the most recognizable name. We'll get into his stats from last season with the Atlanta Falcons. So in 2023 with the Falcons, these are some pretty underwhelming stats, if we're being completely honest. 18 receptions, 251 yards for 0 touchdowns. But if there's a silver lining here, 13.9 yards per reception. So Mack Hollins, he has the ability to be a deep threat wide receiver for Josh Allen. We all know that Josh Allen, he loves to sling that thing down the field. And Mack Hollins stands in. He's around 6'5". So he's a big body wide receiver, deep threat for Josh Allen. And I mean, the Atlanta Falcons offense, there's a lot of mouths to feed there. The quarterback last year, Desmond Ridder, and it was like that offense for the Atlanta Falcons run by the quarterback. It wasn't very good. Kirk Cousins going there now. It's going to be better in Atlanta this year, but Mack Hollins, 2023 numbers were very underwhelming. If you look at his numbers from the year before with the Las Vegas Raiders, he had some better numbers then. He had his career best season in 2022 with the Raiders, bringing in over 600 yards. So over 600 yards, deep threat wide receiver for Mack Hollins. That's something that I like to have. And he's going to really serve as a replacement for a guy like Deontay Hardy or Trent Sherfield. He's just an additional piece, an additional depth piece for the wide receiver room. You can't get enough depth in this league. There's so many injuries that happen on a daily basis. It could be in practice. It could be during a game. Heck, it could be on a jet ski like Nyheim Hines. I don't know what he was thinking there, but there's so many possibilities for injuries. And having Mack Hollins, a big body who can go deep, get the ball, bring it down for Josh Allen, I think it's a nice signing at a cheap price. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Diggs gone? Oh, boy. No, Stephon Diggs isn't going anywhere. Stephon Diggs, if the Bills trade Stephon Diggs, they would be once again back in cap hell. This team just got out of a horrible financial situation, and I don't anticipate on them moving Stephon Diggs and putting themselves back into that situation. And we have another comment asking the exact same thing. Is Diggs leaving? No, Diggs, he's not going anywhere. I'm pretty certain of it. And if they do, like, I will say this about Diggs. I love him as a player, but good Lord, his cryptic tweets, they do get to you. If you're a Bills fan, they get annoying. He does this every week. It seems like every week, every month, Diggs goes out there and sends one of those tweets, but he is one of the top receivers in the National Football League. He's the top receiver for the Bills right now. We saw his numbers really decline at the second half of the season, and I feel like that was because Joe Brady, new offensive coordinator, came in, and he had to get accustomed to that. Really, more people were getting involved under Joe Brady, less Diggs action, but I feel like Diggs going to have a big bounce back season in 2024. So, and here you go. Here's a comment. Diggs said he wants to retire as a Bill. He is on record saying that, and I mean, love Diggs. Love what he brings to the team. Although I will say I would like to see him put those things to rest a little bit more, not send out the cryptic tweets, but he's going to do what he's going to do. There you go. Russell Recap says Diggs is just a huge ex-troll. It would really suck if he left, and I agree. Yeah, he's just trolling. He's just trolling the Bills fans. He's trolling everybody. We see so many people. It seems like everybody wants Diggs to leave Buffalo. It's not happening anytime soon. Not happening. So another addition the Bills made to this team on the defensive side of the football, Nicholas Morrow. And I think this is an interesting move for the Buffalo Bills at the linebacker position. Right now, the Bills have a couple great linebackers, and we'll talk about them in a minute. So in 2023 with the Philadelphia Eagles, Nicholas Morrow, 80 tackles, 3 sacks, and a safety. Nicholas Morrow, I've heard this straight from the mouth of a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I have a friend who's a great friend who's an Eagles fan, and I asked him, what are your thoughts on this guy, Nicholas Morrow? He said, well, he's not going to bleep up too much. Those are his words. He's not going to bleep up too much. He's not going to mess up too much, but he's good in the run game. In terms of pass coverage, not so great. Nicholas Morrow, he was a leader on that Philadelphia Eagles team last season. He was the defensive signal caller for the team. So that's a lot of trust to put in a guy. And having that veteran experience come to the Buffalo Bills defense, it's one of those valuable assets again. Brandon Beane going out there, signing a player that not too many people have actually heard of. But Nicholas Morrow, he's able to get to the quarterback a little bit. He moves across the field rather well, makes a lot of tackles. And having that signal caller experience tells me that he's someone that the coaches can rely on. That's a plus. If you look at the Bills' linebacking core, Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, these guys were great for the Bills last season. You also have Dorian Williams, an upcoming 4th-round pick by the Bills last year. You have Balin Spector, a late-round pick by the Bills as well. There were so many injuries on that Bills defense last year, and in that linebacking core specifically, the second level is such an important piece for your defense. Such an important piece because these guys drop back in coverage, they blitz the quarterback, they do a bit of everything. And having an extra body there with that experience as a leader in a leadership role with a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who just went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, I think that's a really great addition by Brandon Beane. Nicholas Morrow, when you look at those injuries last season on that linebacking core, it was tough. It was tough. Spears Bills Sports Talk says, I hope Beane is building a dynasty. I certainly hope so too. But really, all we need is one. We just need one for our beloved Buffalo Bills because it's been tough. It's been tough, but we stick with our team through everything, through the thick and the thin. We're all here all the time. Go Bills. And I think the thing I will take away from that comment, and I'll add to it, is when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they're a solidified dynasty. What did they do? What have they done? They had no problem letting Tyreek Hill leave. They let Tyreek Hill leave. And they go ahead and they draft a bunch of people, a bunch of young talent on that defensive core. And then the year after, this offseason, they have some more flexibility here. They just brought in Hollywood Brown, giving Mahomes another target, another weapon. Like the Kansas City Chiefs are the recipe. That's exactly what you want to replicate, what the Chiefs have done. And I think Brandon Beane, he's trying to keep Josh Allen's Super Bowl window open as long as possible, because as long as you have 17 in his prime as your quarterback, you still have a chance. So that's what the Kansas City Chiefs have done. That's what the Buffalo Bills are doing now. Joseph Clark says, love the show. Thank you very much. I love all you in here. I appreciate all your support. Every Tuesday, 7 p.m., I'm going to be here. Table Smash Tuesday this week. Buffalo Bills free agency recap. There's still a lot to discuss. What will be the top priorities in the draft? I think this is a great question because with the additions of some wide receivers, there's a lot of Bills fans, like Bills Mafia, really, really wanted this team to go out and draft a wide receiver. Well, with the additions of Curtis Samuel and Mack Hollins, is that still your top priority? I personally don't think it is the top priority. I want to see the Bills add receivers through the draft, but I don't necessarily know if I want them to draft a wide receiver in the first round unless our guy falls to us. If Brian Thomas Jr. falls to you, maybe you take him. But I think safety is a big need right now because Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp aren't going to cut it. Taylor Rapp, I'm fine with him competing for a starting spot, but I don't want to see Damar Hamlin start on this team next year. You need to address safety in free agency or in the draft. There's been meetings with a couple guys like Julian Blackmon and Mike Edwards from the Kansas City Chiefs over the last few days visiting Buffalo. But this is definitely a need. Safety with Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, one of the best safety tandems in the National Football League for years, leaving the team. Yeah, that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. I think cornerback is a need. Obviously, you just extended Taron Johnson. You have Rasul Douglas, one of the better corners in the league. Christian Benford, Cam Lewis, but Kaiir Elam as well, former first-round pick. But there's still some uncertainty in my eyes because the Bills need to get Rasul Douglas locked up beyond next season. He becomes a free agent at the end of next season. You need to extend him. But I would like to see this team go out, add another cornerback to coach up behind your top corner that's also aging a little bit. So cornerback, safety. I think offensive line depth is a need as well. Mitch Morse and Ryan Bates both leaving the Buffalo Bills. There's definitely a little bit of a need on the offensive lines for some more depth. So I'd like to see them address that in the draft. Actually, here you go. This right here. Safety, defensive line, offensive line, and wide receiver. Those are the positions that I'd like to see this team address going forward, whether it be through free agency or through the draft. Defensive line, they just added a piece today. I'll talk about him in a bit. That defensive line, you have Leonard Floyd depart, Poona Ford depart. You've brought in some other pieces of your own, re-signing AJ Epinesa, re-signing Daquan Jones. Daquan Jones, he's not going to be here forever. He's 32 years old. His days in the National Football League are numbered. So defensive line, in my eyes, still a position of need. Offensive line, you need some more depth. Wide receiver, as many weapons as you can get for Josh Allen. The more you can get, the better. We've seen so many injuries happen over the last few seasons on this team that you need to address these positions. And the safety position, I talked about that a lot. That's one of my number one priorities for this team. Obviously, there's just a massive hole there. Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, it's not going to cut it. It's really not going to cut it. So let's get back to discussing some of the additions to the Bills via free agency. Next up, we're going to discuss, oh yes, the backup quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. In 2023, Mitch Trubisky, 632 passing yards, 4 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Those numbers kind of hurt my eyes to look at a little bit, but here's the thing. Mitch Trubisky, he gets a lot of hate. He really gets a lot of hate, especially from Steelers fans. Like, I don't think Chicago fans fully hate Trubisky because I think they understand that he was drafted ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. That's just a really head-scratching move by the Chicago Bears front office, who they really need to get this right this year in the first round. Like, if Caleb Williams is a bust, or if they pass on Caleb Williams and he turns out to be great, oh, Chicago, there's going to be some trouble for you. There might be some riots in the city of Chicago. You never know. Mitch Trubisky, I think the thing that I like about Trubisky is that he actually has a winning record in the National Football League. In case you didn't know, his record in the National Football League, he's won more games than he's lost. And another thing, he is a former Buffalo Bill. He was here during the 2021 season playing behind Josh Allen. So as a backup quarterback, I think Trubisky is fine. He's a former first-round pick out of North Carolina. He obviously has some talent. And although he's not Josh Allen, and very few people are, he has a similar skill set to Josh Allen. He can run the football effectively. He's a mobile quarterback. He's not going to launch the ball down the field like Josh Allen, but he's someone who's mobile, and I think he's fine as a backup quarterback. He can come in and help you win a game if you need to. Kyle Allen, I felt no comfort with Kyle Allen entering a game last season. So I think Trubisky, an upgrade at the backup quarterback position. It's something that is important in case Josh Allen goes down with an injury, but none of us want to see that. And Hasn't happened yet, so fingers crossed. It's just a good to have Mitch Trubisky back there behind Josh Allen. Spears Bills Sports Talk. You're one of my favorite Bills YouTubers. Cheers. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Will Smith. Back to Will Smith, the celebrity. Says Diggs' recent performance was lackluster, and his recent tweet saying ready for whatever. So with that said, you think Bill's just tolerating this, and you think Diggs trying to force a trade from the Bills? Well, I can't tell you exactly what's going on behind closed doors with Diggs and Brandon Beane, but I can tell you the situation for the Bills, trading Stephon Diggs, it would be really, really detrimental to this team's success moving forward. And it's not just because of the player that Diggs is, but it's also because of the financial situation. Trading Stephon Diggs, it creates a huge dead cap number that the Bills just can't afford. They simply can't afford it. I guess anything's a possibility because if you look, I don't know if you follow the National Hockey League at all, but Wayne Gretzky got traded. But the dead cap numbers, that makes it a much, much harder thing for this team to do. I don't anticipate Diggs going anywhere, but I guess anything's possible. I think Diggs, his lackluster performance, those lackluster numbers that you mentioned, that had a big part of that was Joe Brady taking over as offensive coordinator, getting more people involved. Like we saw, Khalil Shakir was the top receiver for the Bills in the second half of the season, and I'm anticipating that he has a bigger role next season. James Cook, heck, he's a great weapon out of the backfield, bringing in the ball through the air and running the football. So there's a lot of mouths to feed on this Bills offense. Heck, I haven't even mentioned Dalton Kincaid, and I think going into year 2, he's going to have a much bigger role on this team as well. So Stephon Diggs, he is ready for whatever, I guess, but that whatever, I'm anticipating that being with the Buffalo Bills next season. I think this whole thing with the Bills trading Diggs, it's just the media circulating stuff and looking for drama. Although the X posts, they certainly don't help. He's just feeding it. He's poking the bear a little bit. Pokes the bear, and his brother Trevon Diggs from the Dallas Cowboys, that Denver Broncos game, he really poked the bear a lot there. That was brutal. So another signing that the Buffalo Bills made here today, Casey Toohill. Casey Toohill in 2023 had his career best season at 27 years old, 16 games, 26 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 5 sacks. So Toohill, 27 years old, there's still room for growth there. It's not a move that's going to push this team over the top and make them win the Lombardi Trophy or anything, but it's a move that can help out the team, especially when I've already discussed all those injuries that we've seen with this Bills team in the years past. Like if someone goes down, especially with the departure of Leonard Floyd, if someone gets injured, you have a body to plug in there. And we know that Sean McDermott, he loves rotational pieces on that defensive line. So Casey Toohill, he had his career best year last year. There's some promise with this guy at 27 years old coming into Buffalo. So hopefully he can make an impact on this team. And I'm excited to see what he brings to the table for the team. It's just a low risk, high reward move for the Bills. Cheap price tag. I'm fine with the deal, and I'm excited to see this all play out. Will you be doing live reactions from the game next season? Without a doubt. No doubt. I will be doing live reactions from Highmark Stadium throughout the entirety of the season. I'm planning on going to every single home game for the Buffalo Bills in 2024. This is one of my favorite things to do on the channel is those live reactions. Those live reactions, oh, they're fun. It's such a great way to capture everything that Bills Mafia is. The energy at Highmark Stadium, the energy that Bills Mafia brings, even on the road. I remember last year going to Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, Week 18. That game, it was so fun to see a Bills Mafia takeover. half the stadium, at least half the stadium, was Bills fans. Miami, what are you doing down there? Bills Mafia, this is a really special, passionate fan base, and I love doing those live reactions. I love also another one of my favorite segments on this channel is doing those exposing bandwagon Bills fans or getting the score predictions from opposing teams' fans. Those are such a fun thing to do. Oh, we got some McDermott questions here. Is Bills head coach on the hot seat? Shouldn't the Bills head coach be fired if they don't progress this year? And is McDermott the right man for the job? All great questions. So the thing about Sean McDermott, if you did watch my live reaction video to the Kansas City Chiefs game, I was quite disappointed with his game management at the end of the game there against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. Because the thing about what you're watching, you drain the clock down to the 2-minute warning there. And I thought it was a given that the Bills were just going to continue running the football or do some short screen passes to James Cook, or even just run the ball with Josh Allen. You have Josh Allen, you have those legs, 6'5", 235 pounds of pure muscle, big man back there. He's such a hard guy to tackle. Just run the ball with Josh Allen. It's a pretty unstoppable play. But they went ahead and they threw the ball. Some question marks there. Definitely some question marks there in terms of game management. And if you look back to the game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round when it was the heartbreaker 13 seconds game, yeah, there's definitely some eyebrow raising moments with Sean McDermott in this Bills defense. He is someone who's a very conservative coach, and we saw a really head-scratching play with the Damar Hamlin fake punt run. There's a lot of questions around Sean McDermott, but I will say this. Him and Brandon Beane, they're tight. They're tight. They both came over from Carolina, so I think it's going to be really hard for him to be on the hot seat. He's the most winningest coach in Buffalo Bills history in terms of just pure wins. So there is a lot of positive with Sean McDermott. You have someone who he developed the motto, trust the process, and he completely turned this team around because the Bills, I hate to say it, but they were a joke. They were the laughingstock of the league for a 17-year playoff drought. Sean McDermott comes in, leads them to break the drought. He was great for installing that culture. But there are definitely question marks about, can he push this team to the next level? I guess that remains to be seen. I think it's going to be hard to see Sean McDermott on the hot seat, though. I think those are all great questions, but again, remains to be seen. Now, something that I found interesting, because we've talked about the safety, the need for a safety on this team, is today the Bills hosted Mike Edwards for a visit. And yesterday, this tweet was sent out by Jordan Schultz Report. And he says free agent safety Julian Blackmon is headed to Buffalo for his visit with the Bills, sources tell Bleacher Report. Blackmon has several suitors after enjoying a career season with the Indianapolis Colts, which included 4 interceptions. Julian Blackmon, I'd like to see him become a Buffalo Bill. He's a young safety at the age, I believe he's 25 years old, 4 interceptions, the same production as Micah Hyde last season. And you throw him, the Bills are so good at developing defensive backs, and you bring in a young safety, bring him into the system, Sean McDermott's defensive scheme. It's a great setup for success. I'm hoping the Bills get a deal done with him or Mike Edwards. I would prefer that they sign Julian Blackmon. I was looking at some of his stats last year. 4 interceptions. He gets in on a lot of tackles, and he's someone who he played, I think it was 95% of the snaps for the Indianapolis Colts last season. Like, that is a wicked number of defensive snaps to play. You got to be healthy. You got to be an impact player. And I think if the Bills can go out there and sign Julian Blackmon, it would be a great addition for this team, especially adding a safety before the draft. I think that would really help out this team, because I think right now they're going to have to spend a pretty early pick on the safety position. As I've mentioned before, Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, just isn't going to cut it for the safety position. And we've seen a lot of free agents come and go with this Buffalo Bills team. So I'm going to discuss some remaining potential free agent fits for this team. I just talked about Julian Blackmon. I think Blackmon, he would be such a great asset for this team. That young 24-year-old with experience with Indianapolis Colts. 95% of the snaps played on defense for the team last year. 4 interceptions, gets in on a bunch of tackles. Another guy that I think is interesting, and I'm curious to know your thoughts about this in the comments. This might ruffle some feathers. Bills fans got really pissed off when you mentioned Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace, if you've seen his Instagram posts, they're really pointing towards a reunion with the Buffalo Bills. And as I've mentioned, this team, the cornerback position, it's questionable. You have Rasul Douglas, but he needs a contract extension beyond the season. Cam Lewis, Kaiir Elam, Christian Benford, you've got some guys at the cornerback position, but you could never get enough depth. We saw multiple injuries at that position last season. Levi Wallace is a name to watch for this team. He's been hinting at a reunion with the Bills on Instagram, on X. I think Levi Wallace, bringing him back, there's only upside to this move. There's only upside to this move because you're going to get Levi Wallace at a cheap price, and he's so familiar with the team and the defensive scheme already. He spent some time in Buffalo. I think bringing Levi Wallace back for a second stint with the Bills, it's actually a pretty good idea. It's not going to cost a bunch of money, and it's someone who has that familiarity with this team. I think if you're Brandon Beane, pull the trigger on it, get it done, bring back Levi Wallace. But I want to know what you think about Levi Wallace in the comments section below. I'm really curious to see this. How much money would Daddy Josh leave the Bills for? Josh Allen ain't leaving the Buffalo Bills. Don't even say that. That's enough. Not going to address that again. Dean Rojas says, bro's trash. Talking about Levi Wallace. And yeah, this is a common thing. I mean, he got beat out for his cornerback position last season in Pittsburgh by Steven Nelson. And Nelson, he was really solid at the cornerback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have a lot of good corners. But I think the thing about Levi Wallace, a lot of people are going to hate this. It's someone who has that familiarity with that team. Having familiarity in a defensive scheme is such a valuable asset to have. And if you look at the Bills last season, let me just try to preach this to you and try to change your mind here. Because Levi Wallace last season, not Levi Wallace, but the Bills secondary last season, Tre'Davious White goes down with injury. Micah Hyde constantly in and out of the lineup with that neck stinger. We had some other injuries on that secondary as well. I remember Cam Lewis and Kaiir Elam were both playing in the playoffs. Now, do you really want to get that far down the depth chart in the playoffs in a big-time moment and not have a guy with experience? I think bringing back a guy like Levi Wallace, it's a good idea because it's just such a cheap price to do it, and having that familiarity with the team is a valuable asset. Odell Beckham. What about him? Am I missing something? Odell Beckham. I mean, that would be fun. That would be fun to have him on the Bills, I guess. Odell Beckham Jr., he seems a bit overrated at this time in his career. Like, he's a veteran. He's old. He had an ACL injury in the Super Bowl during the 2021 season. Odell, adding him to, this is a guy that's been rumored to go to the Bills for 2 years now. I remember 2022, that season, the Bills went ahead and they signed Cole Beasley instead of signing Odell Beckham. So I think that tells you all you need to know about how Brandon Beane feels about bringing in Odell Beckham. I think just because of the name, being a household name, with that amazing grab that he had against the Dallas Cowboys, that was such a memorable play. I think just because of the name that's attached to OBJ, I think that the price tag would be too much for this team to really consider for a wide receiver that's going to be your third or fourth option at best. You have Samuel, you have Diggs, you have Shakir, you have guys like Justin Shorter coming up, and potentially, probably, someone that the Bills are going to add through the draft. I don't really see the necessity to bring in a guy like OBJ. He's just an older player, and he's had that injury history. It would be cool to see, but at this point in time, I would have rather it happen in 2022 or last season. This year, I'm not so high on the idea. Not so high on the idea at all. Table Smash Tuesday. So this is the very first Table Smash Tuesday, as I've mentioned. Table Smash Tuesday, I'm going to be going live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And it's a new thing right here on the Bills Bunker. I really appreciate everyone that's tuned into this show tonight. I'm not done yet. Still got some stuff to talk about. What has been your favorite addition to the Bills in free agency? Let me know that in the comment section below. And right now, I'll take a moment to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and check out other content here on the Bills Bunker. Give this video a thumbs up. Like this video. It really helps out the video in a big time way. Helps out the channel. I appreciate everyone that's here on the Bills Bunker. And it's kind of a quiet season right now. There's not much going on. Free agency just happened. The draft is approaching. There's not too much happening around the National Football League right now. The Bills, they're making some moves. They made a free agency addition today when they signed Casey Toohill. But there's still stuff happening. And I'm going to be here every Tuesday discussing some whatever's going on around the league, whatever's happening with the Buffalo Bills. So I'm just excited to get this show on the road here. Will Smith says, great show. And hey, this ain't quite the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but hey, thank you very much, Will Smith. Spears, Bills Sports Talk says, start, bench, trade, cut. Allen, Mahomes. Is that Fields? Fields, Jackson. Start, bench, trade, cut. All right, this is a Bills show, so I'm starting Allen. I'm trading Patrick Mahomes for a massive, massive package. I'm cutting Justin Fields easily. And Jackson, I guess he can watch from the stands. So right now, I want to play something back in case you missed it. At the beginning of the show, I made an intro for this show, so I'm going to play it for you just in case you missed it.
Go Bills. Look at this. Look at this crowd. Look at this.
Yes, it makes us wanna shout. Shout!
1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. AFC East champion in our division. Let's go.
This guy's shirtless. He's loving it.
Let's go.
That's a nice show for you. Look at it. Beautiful. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen all night. Those fireworks right there.
That fires me up. Fires me up every time. And that's the Table Smash Tuesday intro. So I just wanted to get you all accustomed to it. Table Smash Tuesday every night. Every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Bills Bunker. Going to be discussing whatever's going on with the team. Today, some interesting moves. Mike Williams to the New York Jets. I think the Jets, they deserve a little bit of respect right now. They're getting better, but it remains to be seen. Like Tyron Smith, a couple other offensive linemen joining Aaron Rodgers in that offense. Some solid additions for the Jets. Adding Mike Williams to that receiving core. Going to have a draft pick to address another receiver or go ahead and address an offensive line need. I think the Jets are getting better. When you look at the Patriots, they're going to get better. They traded Mac Jones for a bag of chips over to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they've brought in a bunch of receivers, and they have the number 3 overall pick in the draft, expecting them to go ahead and draft Marvin Harrison Jr., or they could draft a quarterback. Either way, the New England Patriots, they're slowly emerging. I'm not expecting them to be great next season, but they're definitely going to be better. The Jets are a team to watch. And the Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, I think obviously losing Christian Wilkins is huge for that defense. They also lost, Xavier Howard from the cornerback position across from Jalen Ramsey. That's a huge loss for them as well. But they did address some other needs. They brought in some solid additions. Kendall Fuller at the cornerback position. He's a pretty good ad for that team. Jordan Poyer stings a little bit. Stings still a little fresh. Pour a little salt on the wound or something. It still stings to have Jordan Poyer going to the Miami Dolphins. But obviously Poyer, he has a house down in Florida. So seeing him go to the Miami Dolphins, it's like whatever. He's not the first Bills player to go there at the end of his career. We saw Thurman Thomas go there, and we all know how that worked out. So I'm still expecting the Bills to beat them twice a year. Right now, I think the Bills are still the best team in the division until proven otherwise. This team's won 4 AFC East titles in a row. So until someone dethrones them from that title, they're still the best team in the division. Are you worried about the Dolphins? This right here. Let's address it. So the Dolphins last year, here's the thing about the Dolphins. Like, if I was ever going to be worried about the Dolphins, it would have been last season or even the season before. This is 2 years in a row now that the Dolphins have had a lead on the Buffalo Bills. Last year, with 5 weeks left in the regular season, the Dolphins had a 3-game lead on the Bills, and they managed to choke that thing away. I think the Dolphins, they've got a lot of great weapons. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mostert, Devontae Chain. Like, the Dolphins have some great assets. But my big concern for the Miami Dolphins is, can Tua get it done in the big-time moments? He's proved time and time again that he cannot. And until he proves that he can, I am still not too worried about the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, they've got a lot of solid pieces. They've got the ability to win a lot of games, but their record against teams with a winning record speaks for itself. The Miami Dolphins, they're just the Miami Dolphins, and I mean, squish the fish, right? I ain't worried about the Dolphins till they give me a true reason to worry about them, because last season, that 3-game lead with 5 weeks left, and they still managed to choke it away. Unbelievable stuff from those Dolphins fans. Speaking of the Miami Dolphins, last season I went to Miami for that Week 18 AFC East showdown that decided the AFC East title. You have a question right here. Are you going to any away games this year? And right now, the plan is definitely to go to some away games. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go to every home game, including preseason. I'm going to go to every home game at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, Orchard Park, New York, I guess. I'm going to go to every single home game, and the plan is to go to some away games. So right now I've got 2 places on my mind, and it's Detroit and or Seattle. I'm curious to know what you'd rather see in the comments below, but the plan is definitely to hit up some away games, bring that Bills Mafia energy to different stadiums, and yeah, I'm excited. Popeye says 8-9 for the Bills this season. Why? I'm curious. Like, why? Why do you think that? 8-9 this season. Gosh, golly, that's quite the downfall of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, this is still a team that has Josh Allen. Josh Allen is your quarterback, one of the top players in the National Football League. So I'm really curious to know why you feel the Bills are going to go 8-9 this season. I mean, you've almost got 2 locked up wins against the Miami Dolphins on a yearly basis. Just go back and look at Josh Allen's stats against the Dolphins. Look at his record against the Dolphins. I believe it's 12-2 against Miami now. So really, there's 2 wins there. The Jets, I mean, sure, they're getting better, but I think the Bills still managed to pull out at least 1 win against them. They have been their kryptonite, but the Patriots, They're still young. They got a lot of holes to fill as well. So that's a really interesting comment. And Popeye follows this up by saying too many defensive holes. And yeah, there are some defensive holes, but I mean, come on, 8-9, 8-9. If the Bills go 8-9, I really want you to come back here and leave a comment and tell me about how you said that. But 8-9 doesn't seem realistic for this team. You've got Josh Allen as your quarterback. Too many defensive holes. This team's getting younger. The part about this team is that they have 11 draft picks right now. 11 draft picks in this upcoming draft. So they really have a lot of opportunities to fill some holes in that defense. The cornerback position, you have Rasul Douglas. Linebacking core, in case you didn't notice, last year they had one of the best linebacking cores in the National Football League, except for the fact that it came down to A.J. Klein and Dorian Williams in the divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Matt Milano, you have Terrell Bernard, and you have Christian Morrow, all coming to the Bills' linebacking core this season. And that defensive line, it remains the same a lot, except for the fact that Leonard Floyd and Poona Ford are now gone. So the Bills kept a lot of their homegrown talent here. Trey White left, but Trey White, he missed half the season last year. He missed the full year before pretty much. So Trey White hasn't really been a factor for quite some time. Poyer's aging. Hyde's aging. So I really don't see the Bills dropping from their previous record down to 8-9. I mean, I think you got to put some more respect on this team's name. James Cook is emerging out of the backfield. Josh Allen in his prime years still. Diggs, Shakir, the offensive line. I mean, too many holes on the defense. These are things that can be addressed through the draft. Spears Bills Sports Talk says 13-4. It's more like it. It's still too early for me to really predict the record, but I think it's somewhere in the middle of those two records there. I do feel that 13-4, that's a really good record, and there's not too many teams that do end up going that route with their record. The Bills had 11 wins and 6 losses last year, so I could see them finishing 11-6, 12-5, 13-4, maybe even a step back, 10-7. That remains to be seen. There's still so much time here in the offseason, so many factors that still have to play out. Like, you have the draft coming up, and there's still some second-tier free agents available, so we'll see. How do you feel about Kelsey and Taylor? Travis Kelsey, he's one of the best tight ends of all time. I don't think he's the best tight end of all time. I think that still belongs to Rob Gronkowski. Taylor Swift, I don't hate her. I mean, I just there's a lot of people that hate this power couple and whatever, but I'm not gonna go into hatred. I don't have the energy for that. Bills lose or win the first game of the season, and who do you think they will play? That's a great question. There's still, the schedule is expected to be released around the end of April or May. I'm anticipating this season's season opener will be at home. The Bills started on the road last year. They lost. That was an absolute dud against the New York Jets. There's so many times where the season opener isn't against one of those teams that's a division rival. I could see the Jacksonville Jaguars being the season opener next season. The Jacksonville Jaguars just signed Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis. They took Eric Armstead in free agency. I could see that being the week 1 matchup. Jacksonville Jaguars at Buffalo Bills. The whole list of 2024 opponents is out there, and the Jags will be coming to Buffalo next season. So I could see that being just a storyline. There's a storyline there. Bills, Jaguars. Last year, the game was played in London. I could see that being the opener next season. Let's get some more comments here. Other than Bills Mafia, who are the nicest opposing fans? I've got 2 fan bases for you. 2 different fan bases. One, I went to Lambeau Field back in 2018 to see the Buffalo Bills and Green Bay Packers play. And unfortunately, the Bills got blown out 22-0. It was Josh Allen's fourth or fifth game in the National Football League. His top target was Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones, Charles Clay. You all remember those days. Those were tough. But this team's come a long way since then. And I do have a story. Like I had a Packers fan buy me a drink at their stadium at Lambeau Field, and there was an extra ticket available for a tour on the stadium the night before at Lambeau Field, so I got to go on Lambeau Field without actually purchasing a ticket ahead of time, which silly me, I should have done that. But shout out to the Packers fans and the other fan base outside of Bills Mafia. A lot of people ain't gonna like this, but the Kansas City Chiefs fans, they've been pretty good to me. And I think they've been pretty good to Bills Mafia as well. Like the Kansas City Chiefs fan base, they're a pretty solid fan base for the most part. Like they are a very passionate blue-collar fan base, and they went through a long time without a playoff win. I believe it was like 30-something years without a playoff win. So shout out to Chiefs Kingdom. They've stayed loyal with their team, and they're finally getting rewarded with what's now a dynasty, but we all know Bills Mafia is the best. Will Smith again. What do you think is a Bills' biggest issue when it comes to winning key games? And do you think the Bills are not utilizing Diggs well, and why Allen seems to have a roller coaster kind of performance? That's a lot to dive into, so allow me I had to grab a drink. Okay, so the Bills' biggest issue when it comes to winning key games, without a doubt, I think it's their clock management. The clock management for this team, if you look back to the 13-second game, that was tough. And if you look at the game last season in the AFC divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 minutes, I thought that after the 2-minute warning, I thought they were going to drain the clock, force the Chiefs to use those timeouts. But no, they just went ahead and tried to score, which if they do score a touchdown there, you give the ball right back to Mahomes and go down the field, and he's likely going to score a touchdown. So I think that's been their biggest key issue in those playoff games, in those big-time moments. I think it's been the coaching and their time management. And you also mentioned about how the Bills are not utilizing Diggs well, and Allen seems to have roller coaster performance. The Josh Allen experience. Yes, Josh Allen experience it's quite the roller coaster, but you know what? A lot of people harp on Josh Allen for, he throws too many interceptions. He just turns the ball over too much. But this is a guy who he's the only quarterback in NFL history, the long history of the National Football League, to have 3 consecutive seasons with 40 or more touchdowns. So he is one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. And I'm all for the Josh Allen experience. I'm buckling up my seatbelt and I'm enjoying every second of it, because it's been a really long time since we've seen a quarterback of his caliber in Buffalo. The last great quarterback the Bills had was in the 90s with Jim Kelly. And really, between then and now, there was a bunch of no-name quarterbacks. Jeff Toole, E.J. Manuel, J.P. Losman, like so many tough times at the quarterback position. I'm just going to enjoy every single moment of Josh Allen's experience. I'm going to get to one more question before I end this live stream. Spears Bills Sport Talk says, when do you see the Bills beating the Chiefs in the playoffs? I wish I knew the answer. I really wish I knew the answer to this question, man. Like, it's going to happen one of these years. I believe it's going to happen one of these years, because the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not going to win every single Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs will go ahead and win more Super Bowls. They're a dynasty. They're one of those great teams. You look back at Brady, Gronk, Edelman, all those great guys, and I think what you see with the Kansas City Chiefs is comparable. Will Smith is all about the script. I think the Bills will eventually break through here and beat the Chiefs. You have a guy like Josh Allen. Eventually, you're going to beat the Chiefs and get to that Super Bowl game, hopefully. Do they win that Super Bowl? That remains to be seen. You need to take advantage of it when you do beat the Kansas City Chiefs, though, because the Chiefs, they're going to be a contender year after year after year after year. As long as number 15 is in the league, they will be at the forefront of Super Bowl discussions. So the Buffalo Bills, they're right there with number 17 as well. They just need to find a way to get past that dynasty in the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe it will happen, but it remains to be seen. One day it will happen. You got to believe, baby. Believe. Now, I've been live here over an hour, so I would like to remind you all. Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. I will be here every Tuesday for I don't know how long. Every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Table Smash Tuesday. I'm not going through a table, but we're going to discuss the Buffalo Bills, Bills Mafia. It's a show by Bills Mafia for Bills Mafia. So I'm going to go ahead and close this thing out, and I'd like to take a moment to encourage you. Share this video with your friends. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and like it if you haven't yet. Click subscribe if you haven't yet as well. Stay tuned for more content coming your way. There's still going to be more content on the way all throughout this offseason. Every Tuesday, I'll be right here at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. It's all love. Go Bills, baby. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Look at this. Look at this crowd. Look at this.
Yes, it makes us wanna shout. Shout!
1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. AFC East champion. It's our division. Let's go.
This guy's shirtless. He's walking in.
Let's go.
That's a nice show for you. Look at it. Beautiful. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen all night. Those fireworks right there.